Welcome everyone to the June 2025 koha-US Cataloging Special Interest Group. This month we did have a question submitted ahead of time, question and discussion topic. Callie was wondering if people could chime in about using a 500 note versus a 590 note in instances such as local contributors to a publication. At our work, usually we would use a 500 note with a subfield 5 with our library symbol. That'd be a, you know, National Union catalog symbol or national symbol, or, it's a very flexible field because we would be putting added entries in the record. So if this record was shared, we would want an explanation of what this added entry was doing there so that anybody copying our record could know, oh, that's not important to us, take it out, or, oh, what a wonderful thing. There are other ways to do it too. One could do a summary note, a 520, talking about the item in general, and then talking about local contributors. Does does anybody use or have these issues when they're cataloging with 500s versus 590s?
I don't, but remember, I'm not a real cataloger.
I'm gonna put into the chat a link to the Mark 21 format for this. Another reason that might Oh, we have yeah, our 5 and X's are hidden from view. Exactly. That's very common. So that then a 500 with subfield 5 would be preferred for something to be visible. Also, a lot of places will strip out like X90s or X99s from records upon import or export. Well, if anyone has any further thoughts on 500 notes versus 590 notes, we do have our cataloging email list. And many of us are in the Koha Community Mattermost chat, and there is a cataloging channel. So does anybody have anything they'd like to add, or any other questions or topics they'd like to bring to the group? Yes, Charlie, hi.
Hi, sorry, this is like, I actually just popped in to ask a quick question before I go, unfortunately. I have
That's
another.
fine. It's being recorded. It'll be posted.
Yes. Um, so I had a quick cataloging question. I'm not the best cataloger, so any kind of help would be great. We have it, this is like a Koha Aspen type thing. We have an item type, no, a collection code called audiobook playaway. But we also have like a different collection code called it's like a children's playaway. It's like, I forget what you call it, but they keep um, grouping together in Aspen. I'm trying to figure out how to make it so it doesn't do that. Um, so here, hold on. Can I share my screen by any chance?
Yes, you should be able to.
Now, unless it was because this came up in a conversation yesterday, and I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about that, so let me ask. People,
Always a
you
good
know,
move.
so let me share my screen. So, you guys on the right screen? Is this the one you're seeing? Yeah, okay, perfect. So if I look up, unless I got it wrong, this is what's, oops, sorry. The question was, suppress, need to turn on the, okay, that's strange. Oh, that was it. That was it. Sorry, I had it totally wrong. We're trying to figure out how to, yeah, no. Okay, so when we do a search for just playaways, they don't come up. That's what it is. So I'm trying to figure out a way that would like pull up like all collection code types for only the like only show the available audiobook playaways that we have in the system. But when we tried it here, it didn't work because the regular audiobooks would merge or group together the playaway audiobook and the audiobook. That's what it was. Sorry.
So I might have some help with this because this was something we faced about a year ago as well. It's the way that Aspen looks at your different authorized values for those things and wants to read them in a specific order, which is set in Aspen. So it looks for the shelf location first, and any authorized value that meets that shows up first. Then it looks at the collection code, then it looks at the item type. So if you have an item type that is the same authorized value as a collection code, it's going to turn that item type into a collection code and show it under that collection code instead. This was something I had to go back and forth with on Bywater because I was like, I do not understand this. But we had the same thing. We had the collection code or a shelf location of book, but then we also had an item type of book, and it was putting wrong item types on the book shelf because it was trying to match those and put them all together. So you might want to talk to Bywater, or I don't know if you work with them or not. But it was something that you can actually set in Aspen. We didn't end up playing with it. We just ended up changing some of our codes and just moving things over to the new authorized values. But you have to have a different authorized value for every single one of those, not just within those different categories, but across all of them. Otherwise, it gets confused. And it starts grouping things in the wrong categories.
So what you're saying is you can't have an authorized value for location that matches an authorized value for collection code. And that's
or item type. Yeah.
And that's at the code level, right?
Yes.
So the description can be the same. It's the underlying code that has to be different. Okay.
Yes,
That's something
value
that I
itself.
didn't know. And now I'm wondering if I have any situations where that obtains.
Yeah, we didn't know that either. And we were so confused for so long until we finally met with them and they kind of walked us through it. So it is in your Aspen admin settings as far as the hierarchy of what you want it to look at first. If you want it to look at item type first and differentiate that, you can.
Looking at format mapping, is that?
Let me see if I have notes on where that is.
Oh, that's just the title. Never mind.
I think it might be, it's either in the primary configuration for the library, for the ILS, or it's in the group works. It's it's going to be one or the other, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. You said shelf location, collection code, then item type.
Yeah. And I think we've had some others that we're mixing up with like our not for loan statuses too. Those seem to be okay once we got these three in order and working out. But yeah, we had like periodicals where we had a shelf and an item type, or a collection that was, different kinds of histories, but we also had, anyway, big long story. So yeah, once you find that hierarchy, which that is the one that they gave me. That is the one that's the default setting. Make sure that your authorized values are different, and that should be able to separate them out.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I was confused. I was like, well, I don't know actually.
Yeah. No, we went through this for months, and I just kept asking Bywater, and they were like, yeah, no, it's this hierarchy. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So we finally met online, and they walked me through it. And oh, okay. So yeah, that's your big thing, is that yes, the codes have to all be different because the computer doesn't know what you're talking about.
Perfect. That makes sense to me. Okay. Thank you so much. I actually have to run because the meeting's at 8:30. So thank you so much for letting me jump in and just ask my question.
So glad you did, Charlie. This was very educational.
Yeah.
Well, I'd also say I'm currently writing a report to see if I can determine if I have any duplicates. And once I have that, I can share that with you if you send me an email to remind me. And it's just george@nekls.org.
I will do it right now.
And then perhaps you can
Do it before you forget, yeah. Because
yeah, honestly, because this meeting I'm going into is going to be at least 2 hours long, so it's I never know.
sounds like hell.
And I mean, if your authorized values do duplicate, but they're in the right order, that it shows up correctly, then you're good to go. It's just, if you don't have it in the exact right order, then yeah, it's going to be ugly. So yeah, just make everything unique. It just makes it easier.
And please share that report on the report wiki. And maybe this would be a good topic for an every other Thursday video.
Maybe. I think Christopher and I have been trying to stay away from Aspen and focus only on Koha.
Well, if you're focusing on Koha, though, I mean, people never know when, if they want to implement something like Aspen. And also having unique codes at the code level is kind of good practice.
Yeah.
Make a
I'll
good,
talk to him about it. We're actually meeting today to talk about to do a recording. So never know.
make
You
a
might see it
good,
in a week.
good presentation too.
I'd go.
Right?
I just sent you that email, George. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Good luck with your meeting, Charlie.
Thank you.
Well, does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring to the group?
Something that doesn't have much to do with cataloging, and
Oh, I don't know.
just out of curiosity, how many libraries are using Aspen, excuse me, on top of Koha, and how many are just doing plain ordinary Koha?
So we are actually kind of using both. So we're doing Aspen for our physical library, but we have an online collections as well that are more global, and that we have a separate in-house OPAC that we use. And so we're using OAI to get all the data out of Koha into that, but also curating collections just for the physical library as well in Aspen. So we've got kind of both going on.
We're running both. We're running Koha as our primary staff interface. We're not really doing anything with the Koha OPAC anymore. And we're running Aspen. And one of the biggest advantages for our member libraries that we have with Aspen is that each of them now has a separate discovery layer. So it used to be that if you were at the Leavenworth Library, you searched the Koha OPAC, and it was the same OPAC for all 50 libraries. Now there's a separate interface for the Leavenworth OPAC and a separate interface for the Lansing OPAC, and you know, McLeod and Leavenworth are really close together, and this is a good example of how it works. You know, Leavenworth has, uh, they have their physical materials, then they have Hoopla, and they have Overdrive, and they have Canopy, and all of these other things, and they're all searchable if you go to the Leavenworth's Aspen Discovery interface. They're all searchable in that interface. And then if you go to McLeod, where they don't have Cloud Library, and they don't have Canopy, and they don't have, and it's not Cloud Library, they don't have, it's Overdrive, they don't have. They do have Hoopla, so the McLeod Aspen gives results from their physical collection, from all of the physical collections at all the libraries, plus Hoopla, but no Canopy and no Overdrive and none of those other services. So, you know, it used to be that, you know, we have, I think, 15 libraries that are part of the state's Overdrive library service. And some of those have Overdrive Advantage. So they all have different materials, and we never put those materials in the catalog before because they weren't available at all of the libraries. And so now it doesn't matter. We can do them we can add that stuff for the libraries that have it, and we don't have to add it for the libraries that don't have it. So it customizes the OPAC. And they all have different, most of them are kind of the same basic design, but some of them are customizing the hell out of their Aspen Discovery interface. Ottawa is a great example of that. They're not our biggest library. They're pretty big compared to a lot of our others, but they've gone way deep into customizing the way that their OPAC looks. It's got their colors and their designs and all of the stuff that they want that isn't, most of which isn't applicable to the other libraries. And it's weird, the libraries that are doing the different kinds of stuff, like our Linwood, which is one of our smaller libraries, they're a town of less than 1,000. They've been going all in on the design of Aspen and creating custom newsletters and lists and all kinds of stuff that other libraries aren't. So it allows our members of our consortium to do more or not do more as they see fit. So
Is this something that y'all have chatted about in the consortia special interest group?
yes, and there is also a Aspen Discovery Community has a Koha users group that's met a few times. Most recently being Tuesday.
Perhaps a link to that in the chat.
Yeah, if I can find it.
Thank you.
But there's one of the things that is a big difference compared to Koha. There's a lot of things that Koha is more forgiving to bad cataloging. If you have an indicator that's wrong, if you have a book or if you have a DVD and the indicators in the leader and the 008 and the 007 are actually indicators for a book, which God knows we've never made that mistake and had that kind of problem happen. Koha doesn't really care. Koha, there's no major issues with that. But in Aspen Discovery, if the literary form isn't set right in, what is that, the 008, if the literary form says it's a nonfiction book, but it's by James Patterson, and it's part of one of his young adult series, when you do a search for fiction, it's not gonna show up. It's the indicators, and the bad cataloging has more of an impact on the Aspen catalog. So. Yeah, so what Angela says is very true there. Sometimes Koha being forgiving to bad cataloging is not great. And that's what we've had a lot of issues with. There's a lot of cleanup that I've been working on for the last, well, since October.
What I find has been the benefit, though, is that the users can still generally find what they're trying to find, and that the cleanup merely enhances that and makes sense out of displays. But yeah, that's really good to know from a cataloging perspective of the consequences if you implement Aspen.
It's just more fun. More work is more fun. Or more opportunities for fun.
That's right.
Fun, job security, same thing, right?
Yeah.
We've got to find our fun.
It makes looking forward to that future retirement date just that much better. Like only 4 more years of this, 5.5 more years of this. Or whatever, what is it for you? Like 6 more months, Heather?
No, I am officially retired and I am now volunteering.
Oh, you're a volunteer now. I didn't realize that date had come and gone. So congratulations.
It did. Thank you. I have to say, retirement is 10 stars out of 5. Would highly recommend. Well, would people like to share or have any questions or topics on cleanup projects that they're working on? Since cleanup was, I mean, what I've been trying to do is help out with editing the manual, and I want to try to get more involved in testing patches and more involved in the koha-US demo koha instance, since that's going to be the catalog I can mostly play with. So I'm going to try to be working in there and looking a bit more at that cataloging. Anybody want to share about cleanup?
I've got
Well,
two
if you
big,
want,
oh,
go ahead.
I've got 2 big projects that have just been kind of looming over me of we have things out there, periodicals that have both holdings and components, trying to figure out what happened there. And then a lot of things about our series and our serials, things that got crossed. So a lot of our cleanup is just saying, okay, what did we actually mean to do here? And let's define some of these sets of items and stuff.
Yeah, if you want a really big cleanup project, you remember the presentation I did, what Lauren and I did on CSV to MARC? And all those new MARC records need to be cleaned up because I just entered them into, oh, what was the Microsoft? Was it Microsoft Access? But no subject headings or anything like that. If you're truly desperate, but I'm still working on that one. But I am not retired. And I have all sorts of things on my plate.
The cleanup work I've been doing has kind of been on an ad hoc as needed basis. Like somebody will send me an email saying, these video games aren't displaying the way I expect them to display in Aspen or wherever. And then I will look at, and I will say, and they will always say video games aren't, it's always this discussion with libraries where I'll get an email saying video games aren't displaying right. And then I have to go through all right, could you send me some specific examples of video games that aren't displaying right? And maybe an example of some video games that are displaying right, and tell me, what the situation is. And then I try and look at the records. If they answer back, I try and look at the records and see, why are these 2 things, or usually in many cases, why are these 3 or 4 things how are these 3 or 4 things not displaying the same way as this one thing that they call a good record, and hunting down, you know, which parts of the record are causing the issue. And I get a lot of that with circulation rules too. Why is it we have like several item types called things, like we have things, bicycle, things, tablet, gadget. I think it's things gadget, where it's like a tablet e-reader, you know, different kinds of electronic stuff usually. And, you know, it'll often be along the lines of, you know, well, I thought that if I use this item type, that it would work this way. And it's like, well, no, each item type needs its own rules. And then it becomes a process of finding the things that they want to circulate the same way, or that they want to appear the same way, and making them all consistent with each other. And that's generally the kind of cleanup I've been doing for the last several months.
Yeah, the circulation rules are vast.
And complicated with so many relationships between this and this and this. And
I've been trying to work out a kind of ideally, I would like some kind of form where somebody can say, this is it. You know, we don't give our libraries the ability to set their own circulation rules, because that has proved disastrous. If they can go in there and change their own rules, because it is complicated and they misunderstand the way things are working. This happened recently with a member of our own staff at NEKLS. Somebody called and they said, you know, we're having a problem with this item type not circulating the way we wanted to. And I wasn't here. And so they talked to somebody else that many of you may know. And she made a mistake when she was fixing the problem she thought she was fixing. And it was about a week later, I got a phone call saying, we just realized that all of our items are due on the same day that we're checking them out. But it's not all of the items, it's just 90% of them. And it's because the loan period had been set to 0 for all patrons at that library. All patrons, all item types have been set to 0. So it was only the exceptions that were checking out for the right amount of time. It was the default rule had been set wrong. And that's why we don't give permission to individual libraries to change the circulation rules, is because it's really easy to make a mistake. And that clone these rules to another library button, that's just dead. That doesn't work at all in our system. I've killed that. But even with, you know, even knowing what you're doing, it's really easy to make a mistake. And so I've been trying to develop a form that somebody can fill out and say, this is what we'd like our circulation rules to do. But there are so many options that it's really hard to come up with a good way to write that, because there's so many variations you can have on it. So
I had a few fun things I've been playing with. Share my screen. I don't know if I talked about this here, but we ran into an issue with Ultra HD Blu-rays, which are the new. So like your Blu-ray player won't be able to play it, just like your DVD player wouldn't be able to play your Blu-rays. So I had to do a little bit of massaging and like education for people, so they know that they can't be on the same records. So like if the patron places a hold. So I went and stole the logos. They're open source. They're not stolen. They're public domain or whatever. And then inserted them into our catalog search results based on the addition statement. So I had to go through and clean up all of our addition statements so that if it was Ultra HD, it was in there so that it would pull in the record or the logo. And I did that in the staff client and the OPAC over here. And that's just some jQuery that's leveraging.
So were those logos like cover images?
No, they're getting added specifically by actually they're stored in my database here. So I have them in the file uploads. I had BioOrder set up an images directory for me. So then I can reference those images directly from the server wherever I want. So there's no extra go out, pull, load. It's just all right contained within Koha.
Very nice.
And the other thing that I did, probably breaking some sort of cataloging law, yesterday we had this situation come up where we do hotspots and they often go missing and never come back. So we had this big record with 22 hotspots on them that never coming back. So we decided we wanted to retire that record, but we didn't want to delete it yet because we need to still have it there for following up and stuff. So I looked and learned about the linking fields. So I duplicated the record, made a new record for the new hotspots, and then I linked them together with the 785. So that Koha knows how to put a link into the record for that. So there's a link that goes between the two. So this one is continued by that record, and over here it continues the old record.
I think that's brilliant and perfectly appropriate and absolutely legal.
Okay, I appreciate that. So that's what I've been playing with cataloging wise.
Very slick, really, really nice. And maybe worthy of a little mini conference presentation, because those would be very useful to other people.
Yeah, I've been hesitating and putting in a proposal so far, but I've still got a week, so I'll think about what I want to talk about.
It could even be an anthology proposal with little tiny things that.
Yeah, that's sort of what I did at Montreal last year, was just sort of, here's some stuff I did.
Yeah.
Sort of lightning talks, 5-10 minutes. Then all of you fill up an hour.
And there's nothing wrong with, one person having 3 strikes of lightning before the next lightning.
Yeah. I've been struck by lightning. A couple years later, I turned into a librarian.
So who here is planning on going to the conference in September? Just us 3? We always go. Okay, Angela's going to, all right. If you've never been, it's a fun conference to go to. It's really informative, and all of the people are. We haven't ever had a situation where there's been like problems with somebody being rude or not being a good person at the conference. We've never had that. So I've always said that if you've never done a presentation before and you're worried about failing, we're the best group to fail with, because nobody is going to come up to you afterwards and say, oh my God, that was terrible. Or everybody is going to be nothing but positive and reassuring. And it's a great place. If you've never presented at a conference before, it's a great place to present for the first time, because you're going to get good feedback, good positive feedback, and it's a very welcoming experience. So if you haven't been, I recommend coming, and if you've never done a presentation before at a conference, it's a great place to stick your head out for the first time.
George was about to quote you on that. Yes.
A link to the Aspen Community website. There you go.
Thank you.
That is one thing about the Aspen Community, is that there's an Aspen Community website. There's the Aspen, what is it? The Aspen Help Center and the Aspen Developer Community website are really hard to find. If you go to one, there are almost no links back to the others. And they're all done in Aspen. They're all built using Aspen. So it's really interesting to go there and see what's there, and it's all in Aspen. But nobody has ever thought of linking them to each other. And it has kind of a higher bar like than the Koha wiki. The Koha wiki's got a really low bar to start going in and changing. And there's a slightly higher bar with the Koha documentation, but the Aspen Discovery community, to become part of that ability to create and edit stuff on the Help Center or the community pages, it's a higher bar than any of the Koha stuff. So that's kind of an airing of a grievance there. So I think the community website should have a little more community input. So,
but it's not Festivus yet.
Well, is it an anti-meme? We need a little Festivus right this very minute.
Okay. Getting back to conferences, I was at one in a very large hall. Can't remember what the presentation was, but I think the presenter was in high school, and people just started streaming out of it, which was really sad. I stayed there just because someone had to. I'm not sure what percentage left, but a third.
I can't imagine that happening in the Coho community, because everyone I run across is so kind and supportive.
I've been to several Modern Language Association conferences as an English major and a graduate student, and the way that that works is you kind of get up in front of everybody and you read a paper. You read right off of the paper that you've written, and then at the end you answer questions, and that's normal. I've been to teacher conferences also with my wife, and if somebody starts reading a paper at a teacher conference, they'll all walk out. They're not there for that. It's, you go there to have a discussion, and if somebody starts reading verbatim from a paper, they'll just all leave. So, which I thought was completely weird after having been to literary conferences where that's all people do is read papers, and then you go to a teacher conference, and if you do that, it's like
Well, maybe at the conference there'll be some more Koha poetry, Fred.
I'm trying to think of some, but haven't yet.
We'll keep working on it. Before we get into Koha literature, let's circle back. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring to our cataloging group? Cataloging poetry.
That is intriguing.
Oh, that's
Nice one.
fantastic. Oh, or I'm going to read that into the recording. Um, to convey one's mood in 17 syllables is very difficult. Well, one more call for any topics for the group.
Sort of.
Okay.
Today I am going to, I hope I can get around to it, catalog item 8 and 9 of one particular book. I think we have 2 on the shelf and the rest are missing. Has anyone done a display of most stolen books?
Isn't that kind of inviting them to? I don't know.
Wouldn't it just be an empty shelf anyway?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Or we're thinking of getting some milk cartons.
Have you seen this book? No questions asked.
Well,
Yeah, but
I would say that, if you really have to do an inventory to know what's stolen, because if somebody steals something from the collection, how do you know it's gone? Unless, if I'm thinking of, when I worked at a library with 780,000 different items, how would you know which ones are actually have been stolen? And maybe just aren't just misshelved, or if they're not there, how do you know they're not there if they were stolen out of the library?
well, what's mostly missing is our popular health reading uh, collection. Only time I did an inventory, about 40% of it was gone. And a lot of the time, the door is open, but no one's out actually looking in the library to see what people are taking. Any clinician has 24-hour access. I'm sure people don't really mean to steal them. Well, not everyone. They just borrow one and it doesn't come back.
I think we've had more issues with our staff walking off with stuff and not returning it. Yeah.
These 2 are amazingly popular.
And this
Both
one's
good
been
books.
been showing up on our hold list for several days, and
Uh,
it's like, well, we can't find it on the shelf, and then I look in the pile here on my desk, and there it is. So,
yeah, I've done that too.
and I wasn't even reading it. I just needed something to test a barcode scanner with.
Find one with lots of dust on the top and use that one.
Our professional collection, we don't keep that long. If we don't keep them long enough for them to get dusty. If they're not checking out, we retire them.
That's one of our weeding criteria.
I will point out in the item record, there is a place for missing statuses that can be very handy and is really easy to customizable if you
Yes.
wanted to do something like missing searched once or missing searched, yeah, missing second search, or yeah.
Trace 1, trace 2, trace 3 is what we used to use at the University of Idaho.
Nice. And it also can interface with holds. Like, does the patron want to be notified if it's found, or do they not need it? They just wanted to let you know they couldn't find it, but they found something else. Well, anything else anyone would like to bring to the group?
Just a question. George, what is your background with the
That is
manuscript?
the first page of the Beowulf manuscript currently.
Okay.
Wat way Gardena in Yer de Gum, Theod Kenning a Thrym Gefrunen, who the Athelingus Ellen Fremida. There, my memory gets fuzzy. So,
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think I will mention that our next meeting is going to be Thursday morning, July 3rd. It is the day before holiday in the US, the July 4th holiday, but I'm gonna hold the meeting anyway. We'll see what happens. So thank you all for attending. I will see if I can end the recording.